Well, welcome back, everybody, and thank you for dealing with us or sticking by us while we just dealt with some technical difficulties. I am pleased to welcome and introduce our next presenter, Matt Brennan. He is a first-time presenter at AuggieCon, so thank you for being here. Matt
Thank
is
you.
a product specialist with Part Three and the host of a very popular podcast, What the RFI. Love it. So please go check that out. His presentation for us today is called Construction and Min. Where is it going? Oh, sorry. I know this. And will it change? So welcome, Matt. Please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. And what an absolute pleasure to be here. And it's very exciting to see this all come together, jam-packed with 2 days, lots of insights. So absolutely. And let me just share this screen here. And I want to share this one right here. We should be good to go. Let me just pull this over. We should be live and clear. Here we go. Okay, perfect. So as Christina noted, construction administration, where have we been and where are we going? Lots has changed, and a lot of things are changing very fast too. And we're going to dive into that. This presentation in terms of who it's geared towards, definitely architects as primes, here as the CRP, the coordinating registered professional, but keep in mind, this also applies to those consultants, specialist civil engineers that are acting as the CRP. So a lot of kind of touch points through this presentation. There's going to be something for everybody at the end of the day, okay? So let's get into it. So as we get a little started, a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for about 22 years now. So definitely seeing it all, from high rises to multi-million-dollar residents that are featured in the Vancouver Sun every year, to schools. That's my passion, is K to 12. And I can't say why. I think the reason why I enjoyed K to 12, it was just the fact of the challenges and just the new way that we were doing the 21st learning, about that collaboration, kind of like what we're doing on the industry. Let's bring that to our children, to the students and everything. In past times, as Christina noted, I run a podcast called What the RFI, and we talk about CA. So you can clearly see through my 22 years of experience, 15 of those years have been dedicated to CA. I've got lots of stories. You have lots of stories. When I go to these conferences and meet individuals, it's so much fun just to kind of grab a drink and sit down, and everyone's got their story, their challenges and everything. And you're going to see some of that through this industry. But yeah, as for pastime too, like I said, I love just being outdoors, always outdoors, traveling. I just recently got back from a 3-week adventure with my partner up into Paris and Germany and Normandy. Huge fanatic of World War II history, and finally filled a bucket list item of myself, kind of visiting all the sites in the D-Day beaches. So very, very special, but always moving. If you come to any of the conferences, let's go for a run. Now, let's talk about CA. So today's agenda is, we've kind of broken it up into 3 sections. Basically, where we've been, the past, where we're now, the present, and where we're going in the future. Okay, kind of take it in that, kind of like, Christmas Carol in a glance. So let's start off with the past. Where have we been? Okay, the history of construction administration and the tools that are around us today. So going back to kind of like the caveman days, that was when the first shelters were kind of created. I'm sure there was very minimal direction provided. These shelters were created. Regardless, we survived. We made it through. And then we advanced as a civilization to ancient Egypt. Construction of the pyramids of Giza, for example. Now, I'm sure labor laws have changed, and thankfully they have changed since those moments, but definitely there was a CA aspect of it. You had your architect, and you definitely had, you had your construction administration, your generals making this project move forward. And again, what a beautiful, and mystery of these elements that were created. And then we yet again advanced through the medieval times, and, castle, cathedrals. And I've got a huge, in addition, perspective and appreciation to this type of architecture. Again, being over in Europe, we went through a lot of medieval towns. We went through Castle and Sienne, and seeing that. We went through a ton of cathedrals, Notre Dame. We went to one in and, that's actually the tallest cathedral that you can climb up. It's almost, I think it's about 900 steps to the very top. So incredible. And as we're going up through this, the attention to detail was incredible. So you absolutely better believe it that there was some kind of CA aspect. Yes, there was some, probably like a set of 10 drawings, if that, to make this work. But people always running, being hands-on and driving this ability to do it. Fast forward to modern times, 1876, the telephone was created, a new way of communication. We didn't have to mail, just much better way. You know, we could do it on a general term, a direct method versus like radio and so on. 1965, fax came out. Hey, now we can start to send stuff in a much quicker way. We don't have to pick up the phone. We can send a whole message with a click of a button. Somehow I made it into the timeline. 1983, Matt Brennan was born, and and from there the journey came into it. 1990s, the 90s were fun. Email, new mainstream, for construction administration. We thought this was the new way of doing things, and I think today we might regret that. How many emails are you getting right now through this presentation? I'll let you be with that. 2002. Autodesk buys Revit. Big milestone for the industry. We were doing everything through AutoCAD. I was using AutoCAD 14 back in the day, ADT, and now Revit came into it. And I was actually an early adopter of it. I knew about it before they bought it, and once they got it, I actually did grab a license and move forward with my practice at the time. Around the same time of this transition, Procore was launched. Right? A very small scale at that time. Today, with meeting architects all throughout North America each day, I find that about over 60% of projects are using this application. The GCs have really adopted this, and that's how it's going. Okay? 2007, the iPhone, smartphone, that changed it. Yes, we were Palm Pilots before, but they weren't anything. This really started to launch the revolution of having a computer at any time in your pocket and accessing. So what is next? That is the big question. That's what we're going to dive into here, and we're going to uncover and see how we can be better. And I think there's two ways of looking at this image. Where are we now? We can look at this, hey, we're almost at the top, or maybe we're on our way down, and there's such a vast world that we haven't even touched when it came to CA. You could almost replace this with, a tip of the iceberg image, right? You just see the tip of it, and yet there's so much more to uncover. And I really do believe that, because the ways through that timeline that we just kind of worked about, and if you look at a typical CA project, it's still the same. Things have not changed over the last 2 decades. And I think we're starting to see finally a shift with that to, taking back control, and we're going to get into that. Okay. And, the big thing, I guess the big attitude, the big point I really want to drive home here is change. And that is the reality of this. And I something that we can all relate to in this room, in this presentation, is look at the days when Revit was brought in. Anyone using AutoCAD or even just AutoCAD and then moving to Civil 3D or AutoCAD to Revit, it was a phenomenal product. We were blown away. The fact after you could do a demo and you could see that you had this amazing blueprints and this house and everything, you could make a change in 30 seconds and be done. And you did this all in an hour, but it always took change. And that is always the challenge. And I think of anything with all these tools, that's where it is. So I guess my encouragement is to be open to change. And I think before you could have kind of laid back, took your time and everything. Today, with the technology of how fast we're evolving and AI and everything, you got to be on board with it. You got to be more receptive to change. And we're going to go into some of those tools today. So let's pause here and let's talk about CA. How is CA changing? Okay, we know tools are changing, but how is the general topic? How is the industry changing? And the medium really has changed in that respect, right? The adoption of technologies move us from paper, spreadsheets to the cloud, okay? And that, it's funny that we still are in that middle ground of spreadsheets and stuff. We're not going to advance. We're still doing a lot of manual processes, but the industry is really wanting to push you to that. The expectations have changed when it comes to sustainability and green building. And I always want to kind of bring up the fact that we had a big pandemic about 5 years ago, and it changed the world in terms of supply chains. How before we didn't have problems. We could wait till the last minute to order a panel for our main electrical distribution system. We could take our time on stuff. It wasn't a big deal. That's not the case anymore. we have to be very proactive. We have to be upfront, and we need to be, like I said, proactive to get some of this stuff, to keep some of these projects on time, on budget, and that they can, open on the promised deliverables. And the data quality has really changed, right? Again, from old days of like when, we were from paper, kind of back to the medium has changed comment, for receiving shop drawings for a building through, through mail or something like that, or an old fax, the quality is much different. And that's coming, again, from being sent by email, coming to us. We've got rich data to compare, and then this can tie into the model. And like I said, there's a lot of opportunities that are untapped. Okay. So it's kind of mentioned earlier, I meet with a lot of architects every day, connecting with them, now analyzing their workflows. And these are kind of the pain points that we see. Lack of standardization through the office, accountability, professional emailer. I did not go to school to become a professional emailer, but yet that's how the industry has been kind of driven. The GCs are really taking advantage of that. Quality control, duplication of work. We don't have control on the project. And this is one point I don't understand, because at the end of the day, as the CRP, the architect of record, the one that's driving the project, once it gets into the contractor's hand, it's kind of just hands go thrown up and they let the contractor drive it. And I don't agree with that methods. At my last firm, we always drove the projects. We always pushed forward. We ran the meetings, and I'm going to get into those points in detail and how you can take back that control. You should be running it. It's your liability. It's your risk. And the example I like to kind of give is you've been designing this project to be this beautiful BMW, Porsche, whatever your favorite car is. You've spent the attention to detail. You've specified all the little products that go into it, the details of the knob, the UI for the computer system. You've spent this time. At the end of the day, at that project, when it comes out of the assembly line, you don't want it to be that Honda Civic. And I apologize if there's any Honda Civic owners. It's not a bad car. But the point is, we designed it to be this premium product. We don't want to sacrifice the quality of it. And that's why your involvement in CA is so critical. And that's why the control aspect is really, really critical. So where do you stand when it comes to this? And I'm kind of broken up to 3 areas, right? And I know some of these terms are really harsh, but pause for a second. I want you to reflect and have a look at it. So we have the laggards, right? Basically manual process, duplicating work, risk, basically just someone that's not really doing, there's no process in place, okay? Where we find a lot of people, standing is you're kind of fitting in the followers category, right? You're kind of going with the flow, you're going with the way things are. You're using fragmented, solutions that have been replacing manual tasks. But it's, again, very difficult to standardize this. And like one example that we're going to dive into is kind of like that Procore element where the GC is running the show. He's a leader and you're following his footsteps as the follower. Let's change the game. Let's get you into that category of a leader, that you're utilizing collaborative solutions, that you're automating the standard tasks so you can get back to the things you love doing. Do you want to be buried in RFIs? Do you want to be buried in construction administration? Or do you want to be enjoying your weekends and packing that? As you saw from my initial slide, I'm adventurous. I love doing all things. I have a jam-packed schedule every week, but I do it because I have systems in place. I do it because I can utilize tools today to, create my show notes for my podcast, whatever. And that's really key. Again, the whole, work smarter, not harder attitude. Okay. So, and it's always great talking with people, like I mentioned, grabbing a drink with an individual, running, having some fun with that. This came from one firm that we work with in Ontario there. And our whole goal in construction is not to lose all the money that we've made in design. And I've been on both sides of this spectrum. I've been on a project where, it was a school project. It turned out really well. We got through design very fast, which was great. We met with our user groups. We did, we actually got through the CDs and record timing. It was a fast-paced project. So we had profit. We got bonuses. It was great, as how it should be. And then the CA came along. The contractor was awarded the project. And they inundated us with emails, 5 RFIs, 10 RFIs per day. just to trigger an extra on site. And we lost a lot through that. And I wish we had a more, we had a good system at the time, but I wish we had a better one, because maybe it would have stopped us from bleeding. Or yeah, maybe you're the architect on the job, and unfortunately you had a client that just made a huge amount of changes at the beginning. You're not coming into the construction administration phase with a budget, right? You've burnt it already, unfortunately. And at this point, you can't throw your hands up and say, I'm done. I'm not doing CA. I'm only going to go once a year and take a look. You can't do that. It's your liability. It's your responsibility. You have to do it. And that's just how it is. Okay. So with this comment, just want to resonate home with it. Just want to make sure that, we can be profitable at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, we are working. We want to make money. We want to do really well and be happy at the same time too. So talk about the past, we talk about where we are right now, but where are we going, right? What is the future of CA? What does it look like? And we've got companies in place that are developing. There's a lot of software out there. I mean, that's good. It gives an opportunity. But what are you doing to start to utilize that? What are you doing to change the way that you have been, doing everything previously? And again, I'm going to encourage you one more time here. I really want you to self-reflect, write some goals down. How can we be better? And it's one of those topics that just gets glanced over because it's CA. No one likes CA. I do, and I know some others do, but can we be better? Can we be better? Well, we're going to dive into the tools here to make us better. So first off, let's take back control when it comes to our general site meetings. Every month, you're going to meet with the contractor. You're going to meet on site with your design team. How can we run these meetings better, right? What can we do? Well, first off, manage the site meetings. I want you to run the meeting and do the meeting notes, the meeting minutes, right? Take that control. So many times I see the contractor running it and you've lost all that control. They will put whatever they need to do to make them look like they're in power, they're in charge, and everyone else is not doing their job under them in that sense. And I'm not saying all contractors bad. I've worked with some amazing contractors and I love those relationships. It's a fun relationship. When we finish the project at the end of the day and we literally do crack open that champagne bottle and we have a great time, and it's good, good high fives, versus the contractor. It isn't a good one. And yeah, it's just awkward and it's just something that you just don't like to do. So, but still, from an accountability point of view, you're the CRP, you're the owner's rep. Run the meeting. You run the meeting in that sense. Do the meeting notes. With that at bay, at that control, note the long lead item. Okay. I want you to basically, call everything up. So I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada here. We deal with BC Hydro, so that's all our electricity. We have Fortis Gas, which is all our natural gas products. And then there's long lead items that we'll talk about in a second. But with like the BC Hydro, for example, to get that pad mount transformer, it's not just me making a call and saying, I just need a transformer. Sure, we'll drop it off tomorrow. We got 10 in stock. It doesn't work like that. You got to go through design process and everything. And you're doing this already in the design stages to keep the fast track. But once it becomes a green light and you can pay out and put some money towards this and get things actually moving forward, it takes time. Your first site meeting, you better have a plan of where this is. You better have an agenda. You should have where we're going with this functionality, with getting this in there, because this can really screw up a project. We talked about COVID. That made it just 10 times worse. And that leads into the long lead submittals. So we had daycares are a hot topic here in British Columbia. It's a huge need. Again, the growing population, people have to work to afford their housing. They need to send their kids to daycare. So there was a huge push from the government to basically, issue out, hundreds of these new daycare projects. And we had them. Well, again, at the end of the day, the daycare was just really a simple glorified home, right? It was just a big building that's was housed it. So it was very simple projects. Anyone could be building it in a sense. And the first thing that we brought to our site meeting is we need electrical distribution panels right away. We need to see these shop drawings because these aren't a 3-week lead time anymore. They're a 12-month lead time. And some of these daycares were only an 8-month project. So how are we going to go for substantial? How are we going to wrap this project up? You just can't. So look at your long leads with that. Look at those items and really be proactive and not reactive with this. And that ties into the shop drawing schedules. And we're going to get into this topic a little bit later. Again, how can we be proactive? How can we take back this control? The next item is the right visual tools, right? Today's technology. Look what we're doing right now. We're all over, North America, the nation here. and we're all connecting virtually, which is awesome, right? And the technology has been there for a long time, right? It's just COVID really fast tracked it and made everyone learn it in overnight. So in your site trails, and put this in your specifications as well, note that they have to have a full 42-inch screen. These are dirt cheap nowadays, right? There is absolutely no excuse to not have this. Even if your contractor refuse, it's cheaper for you to just buy it for them and just drop it off and say, here you go, because it's going to solve a lot of issues in the site meeting versus at your desk. And again, where do we want to be doing that? Billable time, non-billable time, right? The reason for the having the full-size TV is utilizing the video conference side of things. Sometimes with these very remote sites, I don't need my electrical engineer to come up for one question during the site meeting. It's not fair when it's very CA heavy where they are involved. And yeah, of course I want them involved at that point. But for the ones that can't be there or have to jump on for a 30-second question, have that ability to do that remote. It's important. You as the architect, unfortunately, you're going to be going there once a month, just part of your obligations. But if for some reason 1 month you have to skip, you've got that ability to connect, which is good. And then the second purpose is use that TV as a drawing plan desk board there. Bring your drawings to site in that respect. And there's been countless of times where the contractor's saying, hey, we're going to issue an RFI based on this question. What do you want? Oh, it's this. Let's just pull up the drawings, have a look. I've got mechanical, I've got electrical, I've got civil, landscape. Everyone can talk about this one issue, and it just eliminates an RFI. I'd rather deal with it there. The whole point of a site meeting is to deal with the issues that are coming up on the project as it's being constructed. It's not to go through a laundry list of RFIs that are outstanding. That should be cleared up when you get to that meeting. So again, having drawings, having ability to show it and collaborate right there on the fly is huge. Take back control. Kind of, again, this is becoming a theme here. Okay? The reality is, as architects, as CRPs, when we've got contractors involved, they're definitely in the pack. They are advancing. Well, I find the architectural side just kind of skimming along. We really haven't done it. Again, as we saw from the previous session, twin motion and that kind of stuff. We're getting great for visuals. We're getting great with AI tools to do it. But when it comes to the CA, we're still just lagging along, letting the contractor run the show. And like I said, over 60% of the jobs are using a Procore application that we're finding. The GC, in this case, the GC controls the data, right? They own the data. They're running the show. They're ones that are telling you you have a delay claim. Even though you might have returned something to Procore, the contractor hasn't closed it, right? Two different touch points, right? You could have issued him 30 RFIs and you only closed 2 or 3 of them. What about the other ones? That's not your fault. That shouldn't be reflecting. And again, no one wants to deal with a delay claim. No one wants to deal with the legalities and bring lawyers in. No one wins. The lawyers win in that respect. And the best part that Procore is very good at, it loves sending you a lot of emails. That's just the reality of it. And you get inundated, you get lost to a point where you just give up and say, I'm done. I'm not even reviewing these. And that's a scary thing, because now something is going to slip through the crack that actually may be really important that you're getting. So there is ways to be better. And how can we do this? And again, it ties into the logs. Okay. But this is where I'm saying, take back that control. And so you've got options. First off, everyone has access to Excel, right? So you can put your logs together. You can track them. Again, that's where most people are already doing it. ACC, Autodesk Construction Cloud. That's another opportunity out there to start working and start running your RFIs through it in that respect. And then, I discovered a program, Part 3, which, now I do work with them, and where it manages everything. It runs everything. It controls the data. It manages the records. It takes away the tedious task. Through this, what you're doing is it's the responsive and accountability to everything. That's really what you're doing, right? You've got all this data now that the GC is not taking. So again, really, really important. And, regardless of the GCs using Procore or not, or using eBuilder or, anything, whatever, the thing is, you need to do your logs. And I compared this in one of my podcasts in regards to, I was flying back from Asheville, North Carolina. Flights got delayed. It was a mess and everything. And of course, they lost my luggage. And what was so frustrating through the process is no one could tell me where my luggage was. And I'm sitting in a Calgary airport and they're holding me back saying, we want to check your luggage. I'm like, please do. I don't think it's here. And we have to wait for it. And I almost missed my final flight home, which was, it was almost 24 hours of travel, unfortunately. So Logs are important. Knowing where at any given moment, how many outstanding RFIs, how many outstanding shop drawings, whatever the case is extremely important from you, especially when you get hit with that delay claim. And at that point, when you do get hit with a delay claim, the contractor is calling up saying, hey, we're suing you for 2 million because you haven't responded to stuff. You got the proof in the pudding to say, hold on, I've got it. Same thing as site meetings. The design team's holding us up. Really? Are you sure? Let's look into it. Anyway, the data is king. Okay. So kind of transition into some other kind of cool tools that are really going to kind of fast track the process when it comes to your CA process, samples and materials, right? I try and keep my, I try and watch how much I'm doing from a carbon footprint standpoint. We don't want to be, all these emissions just from us to get a little sample that I already have in my office, or better yet, I don't need a full sheet of standing seam. I know what standing seam roofing looks like, right? I know the colors. I've got my swatches, but the reality is sometimes you do need those actual finishes. So this company, Material Bank, what they are doing, and it's really slick, they become basically an Amazon warehouse for your, your GC. So rather than waiting for the sub to try and find the material and get it, these guys have everything under their roof. You basically order it and they ship it right to you through a more efficient way of doing it. And you can review the product and go from there. And I think it's just it's a new way of doing it. It's a single source for materials. And let's get the samples before you actually get the shop drawing. So again, you can start to speed up that process, which is really, really powerful. Okay. One of my fun topics. I love it. This is the toys. On-site field reviews, all the gadgets. We're tech geeks here. We love our toys with this. So let's talk about drones. Okay. Drones have really come a long way over the last 5-10 years, even beyond that, right? Again, it's just really accelerated. I'm a personal fan of the DJI drones, very solid, very, amazing quality, great customer service in that respect. Not only that the technology has changed, the laws and regulations, and unfortunately, I can't speak to the States. I have a very little bit of dangerous knowledge of how it works. But here in Canada, it really has changed. And again, we're not just talking by province, we're talking Canada-wide. Before, you had to write a special flight operation certificate, an S04, and it was like a mini Bible document they had to prepare and saying how you're going to mitigate the risk. It was a pain. They had to send it and wait a few weeks to get reviewed just to fly one, technically in that. Nowadays, you just basically write your test. There's a basic and an advanced, and I'll go into that into a future episode of my podcast and that kind of stuff. It's on the agenda, but lots of great things have changed with that. And because of these new laws and regulations, a lot of companies, again, like DJI, for example, have made drones that are 249 grams or less. If you have a flying RPAS UAV that's 249 grams or less, you don't need the license. You don't, and that's why they developed them. That's why they're selling such a hot topic, because you don't have to go through the rules and regulations. The only rule is don't be an idiot when you fly. So if you're flying next to an airport, know the scenario, but the reality is just don't be an idiot in that respect. And it's great. So anyone can fly. You don't need a license. There's no certification with that. And where this becomes is you got your fun social pictures. Look what we're doing on site, but there's a new level of detail that you can start to document this documentation. And what I mean by that is there was a company by the name of Drone Deploy, and we're going to talk about its parent company later in the presentation here, is Drone Deploy would allow you to basically create a site. And then when you get out to site, you basically launch a drone and say, run this flight path. And it would fly a crisscross, hatch pattern of this whole entire site. Go away, come back to the next site, run it again. Now you've got, site version 1, site version 2, and then site version 3 as you keep doing this and progressing it. And you can basically use a simple slider and see what's different, what's changed and what's happened. You've got the 3D LiDAR model of it. You can spin around the model, start to see the steel being erected, and all those kind of things. Very exciting, very cool. Where this starts to play into a huge role and where it gives you the upper hand with the GC says, we actually had to do a huge amount of cut and fill. Okay, fair enough. We had bad soils, understand. We got our geotech out there and stuff. And we had 100 trucks pull away. And yeah, here's your extra. Please pay it, Hold on. I'm going to go back to the drone data because I would have gone out in site and mapped it just before they did it and mapped it afterwards. And through this LiDAR, through this 3D technology, I could actually count the trucks. I could do the volume checks based on what it pulled away, what they took away, what they put back, stockpiles, all that information. And the drones are incredible. Like they're measuring with, it's not just like within a meter, 3 feet. It's like measuring within inches of the accuracy. And we've done that. Compared it with our civil engineer to what we've done the drones, and it's incredible. So again, another way to document this history and kind of see how things progress. 360 cameras, absolutely incredible. It's one thing to go around with your camera and take your photos and everything and go, that's great. What did it look like up in that corner? Where did the duck terminate? I have no idea. I didn't take a photo of it. I didn't do a video of it. 360 cameras are amazing because it takes a full 360 shot of it. You can go through it. And we've used these cameras not only just in the field when it's being built, but we've used it for tender. We've for basically a renovation or something like that, we go in 360 the whole areas where we're going to be doing this addition or something like that. We upload those to a kind of a cloud-based viewer site where anyone can jump in. That's tied into the tender element, and again, just another way to help secure that, bring clarity to whoever's bidding on this job. During construction, again, how did that duct terminate in there? Was the firing stopping up at that location? You can go back and radically check in seconds and see that. And very powerful, very inexpensive. The only word of caution, if you're camera shy, don't get one because you're going to be in every single photo. But amazing tool just to kind of really bring it to a new level. So on-site field reviews. Again, we've got a computer in our pocket right now, which is awesome. iPads, Surfaces, oh my, great, fantastic tools to have with you at any given moment. And that's really key, right? With, having an iPad mini or whatever in that case, you can start to do your field reviews in a digital way versus just taking your phone and just taking photos and I'll go deal with it at the office later. And by the way, you've got to hit 3 more sites and you're going to get home late and you've got to issue some of these reports because trucks are coming, concrete trucks are coming. The contractor's not going to do anything in advance. Change it. I want you to take your technology on site, do your field review as you're walking around, take a few extra minutes, extra longer than you normally would, and that's fine. But before you leave that site, as you get into that truck, kind of in your quiet space, no one's bothering you now, go through the report and issue it. And I think that's really key. That really, again, changes the game. It puts, gives the information to the contractor, lets them jump on it while it's fresh. They may have even the time allocated to it. Those little things, again, those little changes really help at the end of the day. And best part, you go home and you can just throw your feet up and actually enjoy. You don't have to have that mental, thing of, oh, I got to issue that out. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got to, I know. It's go home and relax, right? Separate yourself from work. So bring technology with you on site to basically do those reports. And 2, they're amazing for drawings. How many times I was on site with PlanGrid, for example, and the contractor's like, I'm not building this retaining wall. Why not? It wasn't in tender. Actually, it was on tender. And by the way, we moved it in SI12, that wall, and then CO32, we added a whole brand new staircase as per the city request. What are you looking at? I've got it. Having that technology with you is fantastic. It's a great way to just identify. And again, going back to the site trailer we talked about, eliminate any additional RFIs that you have to unfortunately bring back to you to the office. Site LiDAR scanning. Again, this has been around for quite some time. It just keeps getting better and better, fewer images. AI technology is really starting to sharpen it up, make it clean. You're not getting kind of weird fragmented models. It's really becoming a new way of doing it. One old friend from way back in elementary school, he runs a company called Pit Meadows Plumbing and everything, and they started as an irrigation but then that actually becoming a plumbing. And what they do, and it's so cool, is when they get awarded the job, they are a design build in terms of an MAP side of things. They do the design with the architect, they coordinate it, they do all the Revit, of course, all the the plumbing and everything, all the chases, etc., the duct work. And then when the construction is being built and they get the framing up and it's all, again, the steel is all there, the walls are in place, they go in with their LiDAR scanners, rip around, create a digital model. They take that digital model, come back to the office, put it in their conceptual one that they did all the working drawings for, and start to make some minor, modifications. Shoot, this beam is a lot bigger than what we were told. They must have changed it on site. Drop it down. Now we've got to change our duct in our model. They go through the whole model. They refine it. They clean it up. And at that point, versus just sending, raw material on site. They make basically the Lego factory. They make duct 1, 2, 3 to, 5,000, whatever the case. Everything's tagged. They take it to site, they drop it there, and then it's just Lego and they assemble it, and there's no conflicts because they did this LiDAR approach. And again, we can start doing some of this too. If you ever get on the site and the contractor has luck, we screwed up, we dropped our geothermal lines too low, versus you getting out your tape measure, LiDAR it, take it back to the office, run it in Revit, take a look at it, and then you can start to create how you want to fix the problem or just tell them to change it back. But the point is, this is a great tool. Again, it kind of ties into the 360 camera, but on just a new level when it comes to your Revit and your design tools that you're using in your day-to-day. And this is something that we're going to see an actual dedicated talk later when it comes to twin motion, but we've spent this time designing this project, we've executed this project, and then we kind of go, hurrah, see you later. Let's change it, because a lot of people have to maintain this building. And this is where, like, if you're working with school districts or any kind of facility manager, this is where this vision can be really cool. And I started playing with this and seeing some, initial success. And like I said, this is where we're seeing twin motion. But again, you as the architect, run this. This is an additional service that you can easily capitalize on and bring a subscription model to your own firm. Okay, you can thank me later, buy me a drink later. But what I'm saying is this is because you got this maintenance manual that you prepare at the end of the job, right? So you've got all the shop drawings. These are all the mechanical units. This is all electrical unit. These are all the appliances in the building. These are all the furniture. All that's really important. I need a new filter on a furnace or something like that. On a makeup area unit, whatever the case is, you would have this massive binder. Well, we give these binders at the end of the project to the facility managers, and they don't do anything. It sits on the shelf and gets dust. And yeah, you can give them a digital model, but again, it's so hard finding this. Each of those manuals, each of those individual products, you could create a website, again, your own firm. This is where I'm talking about kind of the ongoing service as a subscription base. You make that job and you upload all those things. Now, every document that you upload, it has a web link. And as we always see every day, we got QR codes. Make a QR code out of that link. Take that, put on a sticker, put it on that mechanical unit. When that guy's, gone up the flight of stairs, the rooftop ladders, and he gets to the top and goes, oh, I forgot the maintenance manual. And I don't have, it's just not there. Typically, he should have Wi-Fi, he should have cellular. Scan the label, boom, that's the unit that you want. That's what you need to order. Thank you. That's great. Here's an alternate. It was revised and replaced with a new model. And here's some notes about it, right? Here's the log right in there with the QR code. Start to take that into a new level, a new way of doing it. And it doesn't have to be a tedious task because you're doing this during the CA side of things. And I think that's what's really slick to do it. But what an amazing additional service that you can do this and get into this new digital world. And I think that's the thing. QR codes are old technology, but they're amazing, right? It's just very simple. It's a new way of doing it, right? So how can we do this? And like I said, you can do this with audio, you can name it, pick your choice, okay? So the reality is AI is here, right? Whether you want to kind of put the blindfolds on and say, it's not coming, I'm not bothered, I'm resistant to change, I'm not letting it replace my job. No, it's not going to replace your job, but AI really does change the game. You can do a lot of things faster than that. For again, response to my show notes and stuff like that. I record a podcast. I use software, that does it. It puts, it does the cuts. It gets rid of the ums. It gives me a show notes that I can produce. It gives me short clips. That's all computer information that's doing it. It's speeding up the process. Does it make me lazy? Yeah, I could type it myself, but honestly, it's doing a really good job. It's basically an assistant, right? An artificial, an intern, if you want to call it in that kind of ways. But the reality is AI is here and it's on so many different levels. And whether you're using it just for simple chat GPT, writing up construction safety plans, reviewing emails and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of opportunity. I looked at a brand new presentation software that took my presentations and would convert into like LinkedIn carousels. Again, there's a lot of amazing tools out there for it. Like I said, we can call it an artificial intern. We can also call it Skynet. It doesn't matter. It's here to stay. Embrace it if you want. There's a lot of benefits. And let's get into some of those softwares that are using AI functionality. So one of them, Dusty Robotics. If you were at any of the AU events, these guys have been there. It's pretty cool. They've got them on the floor. And what this does is basically what happens is that you basically once the slab's been poured and cured, you put Dusty on there, and he takes the floor plan that you basically have been designing to, and he quickly maps it out. What a phenomenal tool to make any last revisions for the owner to walk through and kind of work through it, even as the contractor site kind of putting in, go, there might be an issue. This door's not. We're gonna be hitting stuff or whatever. Again, stuff that you should have figured out before. We're human. We make mistakes. This is a final check before stuff gets built up, and then you're going to be really hooped, right? And again, just a great tool. You can have the whole floor plan mapped out the next day, put it on, let it do its thing at night, come back, and boom, you've got, where it's going, right? And make those minor revisions if you have to. I love the image in the kind of the bottom left corner. We've got 4 guys looking at Dusty. So again, things haven't changed in the industry. Toggle.ai. This is a really cool. If you're a quantity server, if you're a guy that's doing takeoffs and everything, you basically just take your PDF drawings, upload it to this, and it runs through it, rips through it, does all the quantities for the floor plans. And I've seen demonstrations of it, and it's powerful stuff. It's really cool how quickly you can get some of this. And again, from the architectural point as the prime, this is where you can basically back check when the contractor says, hey, I'm going to be, this is going to be an extra for all this. You can say, well, actually the quantities are this. And you can do that with Revit too, which is good. And that's how we would typically utilize this. But any groups that weren't familiar with Revit and they didn't need to have time, this was a good opportunity. It reduces the estimating errors in the process. Again, the quantities are going to be, determining that. And it's just, maybe if you have to do some value engineering with this, hey, we got to scale back on some stuff. This might be an option for a technology that you can start to kind of do that and fast pace and fast track that. Okay. Open Space. Open Space actually bought DronePlay, and that was kind of what we talked about, the mapping of the site. So they've taken the kind of same technology, but they've taken it to a new level. Basically, you can give a kid a hard hat with a camera on top of it. He walks around. It's constantly taking those 360 photos that we talked. It's doing video. It's putting everything together. And again, you would do this once a month before boarding, before installation, all these kind of major milestones before they backfill. And the whole point is you can go into this history of this version of this living, breathing model and scale it back. Again, this ties into the facility management that we kind of talked earlier. Hey, I want to blow open this wall. We want to make this a bigger room. Hold on. Let's look what's behind that wall. Not happening. There's data, there's plumbing, there's electrical, there's a cross member. It ain't happening. This is fantastic information just to see right away. Even if you're putting up simple picture frames or something like that, you've got a teacher that wants to, change the way this looks. Well, I certainly don't want them to hit through, that main line or that main plumbing, whatever the case is. This is a great tool just to kind of categorize it, document it. Some say that they could do this for their field review. I don't agree. It's still, you are the professional. You still need to go out on site. You still need to answer those questions from the contractor side. But the point is, what a great thing just to kind of get a quick glance while you're on the road, where things are happening. Again, this is all cloud-based in that sense. And just accessing all this information, doing some reviews, making comments. Fantastic tool. Real view of progress, track it, quality control, you get it. AI in terms of submittal logs. So I talked earlier about, changing the game when it came to shop drawing logs. So one thing I've seen part 3 do is you upload your specifications to it. It learns your specs after, by the time you get a cup of coffee, you come back and it creates a shop drawing log. Why would you want to do that? I am so excited about this because this is where it changes. In my 22 years of architecture and construction administration, one thing that was required from the contractors is that they always had to provide a physical set of shop drawing schedules. Meaning, I'm going to see this shop drawing come in this day and so on. I never got that. And if I did get it, I got it once and it was totally upside down. It was wrong. It was outdated by the moment they gave it and dropped it at the site meeting. Change the game. You create the shop drawing log. You tell the contractor what you need to see first. There is nothing worse than going to a site meeting 6 months, 8 months down the road and going, what are we missing for shop drawings? Oh my goodness, we haven't seen the bleacher shop drawings. The school is going to open up in 3 months and the bleachers are on 9 month lead time. Partial occupancy? I guess so. You have no other choice. So if you're proactive and you basically say, contractor, I don't want to see your shop drawing schedule, this is the shop drawing schedule. Again, you're taking back control as the prime. You drive it, you're running the show, you're ensuring that those things are being delivered to you in a timely manner. And this is kind of a tool that will do that. It'll create a master list. And as the contractor logs in, he sees this, he's reminded every day, and he starts uploading this to it. And let's take that one step further. And that's where AI can start reviewing shop drawings. And I think this is really powerful. It's not replacing you, it's just taking the tedious tasks away. And what I mean by that is it already knows, in this case, this application, part 3, already knows the shop drawing, or seriously, already knows your specifications. When that shop drawing comes through, it starts compare and contrast. So let's take, for example, a window. Okay, window shop drawing comes in, your specs, and it'll even pull up and say where in the specs you specified Starline windows. Okay, the shop drawing that came through, Centro windows. I'm not even going to entertain this. I hate alternates. Revise, resubmit, and give it back to the GC. You're putting time back in the project with the GC. And I think that's really important. The sooner that you get these things back to the GC, the sooner they can react and get the right information to you. And especially when it's like, say, a rooftop unit, right? As the architect, it's not my business. It is because I'm the CRP, but that's where it's really mechanical, electrical. So if I get a shop drawing and it flags that, hey, it's an alternate, are you aware of this? I'm going to pick up the phone and say, mechanical, are you cool with this? Are you good with this? No, it changes everything. We got to redesign our ductwork. It changes the breakers panels, etc. Okay, good. Immediately I can fire that back on their behalf and be done. And I think that's where we're going to see this AI technology really streamline when it comes to the CA side of things, where we're catching these errors. And if you approved an alternate in this case, like going back to that Windows example, does it meet testing? Yes, it does. The alternate does match the testing. That's great. Hang on, does it meet the colors? No, I specified black windows. These are white windows. Even though that's a subtle change, if that showed up on site, even though the specs rule, contractors should have picked that detail up, it's still a fight that you got to deal with. So I don't want to deal with that. Let's just be better at our job. So again, it's flagging that. And then warranty. Hey, there's no warranty information for this alternate. These are things that we can start to pull out using AI and that functionality. Just again, it's not replacing your job. You still have the intelligence. But what a great mentorship tool. What a great tool for the contractor to pick this right away. Oh, shoot, my sub gave me an alternate. I'm going to cancel it. I'm going to get back. And he's already seeing the benefits of the time. So I think with this, we're going to see this world expand even more and be just more productive and catching. And again, it's becoming a checklist. I still use checklists when I issue a set of drawings out, whether it's building permit or IFC, issue for tender, anything like that. I'm a human, been doing it for a long time. I know in the back of my, I know all this, upside and left and center and all that, but it's great to have just a checklist in mind. Okay. And there's still more options out there. There's a ton of options, right? Local logic, placer AI, pre-construction. We got test fit. Oh my goodness, like that. If with someone that's doing like condo units and everything, like this thing's tool, like how you can run different modules. I want, so many 1 unit, 2 bedroom units. There's other applications out there. Incredible. Macket.ai. I saw a new one this morning. You basically write in Revit. You just kind of turn your camera the way you want. And you go hit render and boom, it gives you a render in seconds. And again, very comparative to Twinmotion, Lumion, 3D Studio Max, like incredible how it gets all the lighting done. And for just quick, rough drafts, wow, right? Absolutely. Lots of options to get out there. Robotics, we talked about, Dusty, Canvas, again, great tools. Maybe not for you, but more the GC, but maybe it's a joint effort, right? Lots of options. Task automation, part 3, inbuild, Revisto, Foyer, inspections. We talked about open space, Canstron AI, instruction site, lots of options. They're getting better and better and better. And then of course, safety, there's one called Third Eye that, basically uses AI, tracks all that and comes together. But the reality is there's a lot of options. There's a lot of room for to grow. And when it comes to kind of any presentation, I love quotes, but this one kind of resonates when it comes to AI. AI won't replace humans, but 3 humans with AI will replace 5 humans without AI. And I think that is really true. Again, it's the being the smarter attitude, being more efficient. For example, and again, proof in the pudding, when Revit came on board, we were drawing high rises in AutoCAD and we needed a minimum of 10 users to keep up with the demand, right? With the schedules and everything. The moment Revit came into it, it was a more efficient product. It allowed us to do things so much quicker. And that 10 users went down to 2, maybe even 1. And it's not like that we let go those 8 users. We utilized their time better to let them jump onto new, more billable work. And that's, if you've got this attitude against AI, I want you to really think about it. How can you be more efficient in your day-to-day work? How can you get back to being billable versus, and when it comes to CA, it's not billable. It's just extra on that. If you're, spending hours and hours on it and you're making a career out of it, it's not good. It's not going to help you in the long run. AI, if it helps speed up some of these things that you're doing things in a fraction of the time, but while giving out the same level of quality, of course, then you're going to be winning. And I think that's kind of the message is if you haven't explored AI today, it's time to do it now because you're going to be left behind very, very quickly. So where are we going? All right, going back to the starting slide, think about that. Again, are you a laggard, follower, a leader? Right? Where do you want to be in that scenario? Where do you stand with this? And on top of that, my question to you is, what is next? Where are we going with this? How are we moving forward? Where do you want to be? Set your goals for 2025. I always do New Year's resolution goals. I write it down and it's something to work towards to. As a firm, do the same thing. Let's break the cycle here. Okay? Over the last decade, the contractors really starting to take control. We're seeing that with the tools that they're doing. We're being left in the dust. Let's grab the wheel. Let's drive the site meeting and let's take back control of it, right? What a difference. And again, let's be efficient with it, with our time. And again, just be rock stars at the end of it, okay? So that's my call at action to you, is to really kind of evaluate where you're at, look at these tools, look at how you can be better, get out of the dumb manual spreadsheets, hiring someone just dedicated to that. There is better ways to doing this and to be more proactive. And I'll end on with one story of one project. I did, a daycare. It was very fast tracked. It was during the toughest times of COVID. Because we were using, technology to basically respond faster and smarter and everything, we went through 4 different rooftop units, like trying to get them on site so we could make sure that we opened up on time. And because of our speed in the process, 3 consecutive meetings in a row, again, we had 3, every one site meeting every month. And the first time I remember, the contractor kind of just pushed his chair back, stood up, and I thought, oh no, what's coming up? And he said, Matt, design team, I want to thank you on behalf of all TKI Construction, the owner. You guys have been rocking it with us. We are ahead of schedule because of you, and we appreciate every little bit. We've got several jobs throughout the province, and no one like your team is doing their job so efficiently, and we're making milestones with this. And they did that at 2 other occasions, to the point where it was, we just had a good laugh, pat ourselves on the back. But that was the attitude that we did. We were progressive. We were proactive. We were running the show, and you can do the same. And that's my encouragement to you. Look at the cycle. It's time for change. Let's be better with it, and so on. Questions? We're going to jump into the panel there. I'm happy to go into this. I will jump into the lounge afterwards. And then, of course, while we're kind of wrapping this up, where to find me. I'm very social on LinkedIn, all the fun YouTube and everything. You'll see my podcasts on there. That QR code is my LinkedIn. Like I said, very active. You'll see my stuff. Check us out at Part 3. Check out What the RFI podcast, please do. Spotify, Apple, take your pick of poison, doesn't matter. Or the website, whattheRFI.com. And again, like I said, I'm heavily on LinkedIn and everything. But love to connect, love to talk to CA. I will be at AIA Boston in a few weeks here, basically early June there for the big IAA conference. I will be speaking at AIA Aspire, which is in Nashville, North Carolina in September. I will be at CSI National speaking there as well about tendering documents and that kind of sense, and that's in October. So lots of opportunities. And definitely at any A4LE event too, a board member of that for my local chapter, and typically I'm going to the national. So thank you so much. Thank you, Augie. Thank you for having me on here to kind of bring something to a new level. I hope you guys learned something and that you were encouraged and ready to take CA to a new level.